All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
Line unmuted. Line muted.
Father, we come thank you for life, health, and strength. We come thanking you for just being God. We thank you for your darling son, Jesus. Father, we come now asking forgiveness for our sins. We come again asking for your protection. Father, we ask right now, and we thank you for how you've taken care of us from the COVID era to the present time. No one could have done it but you, and we thank you right now. We bless your name for what you've done thus far. We bless your name for what you're going to do in the future. And we thank you now. We bless your name again as we try to make a decision best for our citizens. Lord, we ask your help, that you would help us make these decisions, and that we not take none of this personal, but it's about you and your people that we serve. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Line unmuted.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You are now on. Line unmuted.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting this Monday, October 2nd, 2023, 6 p.m. We have a conference line set up. The number there is 1-917-900-1022. Access code is 32347#. This is not a toll-free number. You may be subject to long-distance charges according to your long-distance plan. When the chairperson opens the meeting for public comment, please follow the below instructions. If you wish to speak, please dial *5. The moderator will unmute your line when it's your turn to speak and notify you by announcing the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Please announce your name and address, and you'll be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be giving 3 minutes for comment. A commenter may only speak one time for each agenda item. All right. Move to number 3. We actually had a add-on to the agenda. Did everyone see the add-on?
Yeah.
Number 3, we have approval of the agenda.
Move.
Motion and a second to approve our agenda. All in favor?
All right.
Consent items. Everyone have a chance to go over your consent items? Any questions, discussions?
Motion to approve.
I was looking at number 10, and it's considered approval of local government comprehensive planning agreement. The only page that I got was the signature page, not the whole agreement. Did y'all notice that?
The agreement's in the packet.
Well, it wasn't in
Do
mine.
you want me to? Would that give, if you pull that from consent, will you have time to review it?
Sure.
Okay.
But I mean, what I do is, go online and pull it, and it just it wasn't there.
That was
Then y'all packets.
part of regional planning stuff.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, I'll look at it and let you know what I think.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to approve the consent agenda, everything except number 10.
Commissioner Siegel amended her motion to approve the consent items all but, item number 10. Now, by postponing that, does that put us in a bind of any sort?
You just wanna move it to the end of the meeting?
I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, I think you just move it to the end of the meeting, and to the end of the agenda, maybe we can readdress it then.
Okay.
I'll be through with this, only 4 pages.
I approve it. I'll second it, Richard.
The motion and a second, all in favor?
We will hear it again at number 10, I mean, the end of the meeting.
We'll circle back at the end, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Number 15, public request. Rhoda Maury, hopefully I said that right, to discuss property purchase. Steve, how you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Commissioner Duff, I've been on since I see you, so.
All right.
This is a very, not a huge request. It's just a little. You can sell it to me, or you can give it to me, whichever one you want. It's the end of the alley on Lundy Lane. Okay, that's what I can't give you because my copy machine quit, so you got this one. Do you see where Lundy Lane is? Should have a yellow mark on it, goes out into 8th Street. What this is a request for the 20-foot Lundy Lane and the 100-foot two lots that go from Riverside to Second Avenue. Now, Lundy Lane goes into 8th Street, which means there's no outlet anyway. So what I'd like to do is I would like to buy that little 100-foot from the county, if you all would let me. And then I got my corner filled up the way I want it to be filled up. It's 20 foot by 100 foot, that's it. It's the lane plus a 100-foot walk.
You own the land on both sides, on all sides?
I own 8th Street. County was kind enough to give it to me years ago.
Do we see any future?
Not necessarily, but I think we'll need our attorney to weigh in. It seems like when I think about what we went through when we sold a piece of property at Cape Beach that was not buildable, that there was, within the statute, we could send, basically petition owners on either side, to make an offer on that particular piece of property. I'm wondering if this would be similar, Conrad, if it's a lot that's not buildable, but we would need a survey. I mean, we don't know what the value is, I wouldn't think, unless we just use the value that the property appraiser has assigned. But can you give us some guidance if that's feasible?
I thought y'all said y'all weren't gonna sell any more property.
Wasn't gonna sell it, wasn't gonna give it away.
Right.
We did.
That's up to y'all, that's up to y'all.
We did discuss not selling and also not giving away property, which I mean, I think I put it out for bid, bids in the past, if we were gonna sell a piece of property.
Recently, there was sale of county property of those 2 lots at the beaches, which is the only reason I'm bringing it up, because it's fresh in my mind.
And I also thought that we recently discussed that we would look at any properties that we have that we may want to put on the market to sell. But obviously, I think we need to table this for tonight and let our attorney do whatever he needs to do. And then, of course, if we move forward, we'll have to have a couple of public hearings also. You know that, don't you?
Probably not, ma'am, but what?
Okay, well, you have to, when we go through the whole
This is
process.
such a small thing, it's not worth a whole lot of your time.
I understand.
Yeah,
But you still have a process to
Back
go through, and you have to have
Yeah.
public hearings and all that stuff. So it's not something that we would be able to make a decision on tonight,
No,
except.
that doesn't make any difference, like I said, it's a very small thing, and if it's, don't spend a whole lot of your guys' time on figuring it out, so that you want to do it okay, and if you don't, that's all right too.
Details on it.
Bring it up at your next appointment with me, which is coming up real quick.
Yes, sir.
We'll go through it.
Okay.
Well,
We just want to make sure that the county would never see a potential use for it also.
I'm sure all that's gonna come up in the detail.
There's one more thing, this is what's in Steinhatchee and Horseshoe and Swanee, that we've been mucking out since the thing. Could you have, is there someone in your environmental thing that you could send that to see what it is, and it's all over town? This is what's everywhere.
Is it vegetation, Ms. Rhoda?
Hmm?
Is that vegetation?
I don't know what it is, it came in with a hurricane, and it's everywhere. It's on your car, in your house, on your clothes, in your yard.
Mud, muck.
But it worries me, I'd like to know what it is.
Yeah, it's, I don't know exactly, but just looking at it, it just looks like mud and muck.
It's different than mud, it never turned to gray.
Yeah.
That's the same stuff that came in during Hurricane Dennis. That's the same stuff, it's mud.
We can.
I can ask Victor if he can weigh in.
Okay.
If you-
Yeah, but with the-
Yes, ma'am.
I am concerned about it, I don't know what it is, and it's everywhere.
I thought maybe it was brownies you were bringing
My considered opinion is that they took way too many scallops out of our area to share that scallop food, if you ask me. Anyway, thank you all.
Just to see Ms. Rhoda.
We'll move to general business 16. The board to authorize chairperson and county attorney to negotiate contract renewal with county administrators, agenda by Gary Noble.
Yeah, so, Wanda's contract expires in November, so, usually the process is that the board authorizes the chair to work with Mr. Bishop and negotiate a new contract or renew it or whatever it is. Wanda, so, I just wanted to put it on.
Got a motion to approve, do we have a second? Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Wait a minute. That's to approve the contract with the bridge.
No.
Wanda's contract. That's for the county administrator's contract, that's to, authorize the chairperson and the clerk to negotiate.
To just discuss.
Right.
And they'll bring back a contract that you guys can look at and approve. Yeah, or whatever you decide to do.
All right. 17. The board to consider approval of request to fund continued pursuit of the Granger Bridge replacement project pursuant to the previously approved Florida Department of Transportation federally funded local agency program agreement for the agenda by the county engineer.
How are you guys? So tonight is kind of a return from a direction from the board back earlier this year. And what we'd like to do is to kind of go through a short presentation that's going to be presented by one of my DOT counterparts. Kind of to give the board a refresher on where we started, how we've come to the point we are, and possibly I will follow it up with where we need to go after this. So Michael Brock is a project manager with DOT. He is going to go through this presentation for you. And then when we get finished, if you want to, we can do questions during. Otherwise, you can hold those to the end and I'll address those.
So I'll try to make this as brief as I can. This is for the Granger Drive Bridge over the canal. I think we're all familiar with the area. I'm going to go over a brief history of the bridge, the bills, board meetings. I'll go over the Federal Bridge Replacement Program, as well as the NEPA process, the PD study that FDOT conducted, and then the recommended or preferred alternative. We're going to start with the early construction of the bridge. It was constructed in 1989. It is a two-span bridge, as you can see in the picture right there, about 29 feet in length, 15 feet wide. It's a single lane bridge. That was constructed.
You will have all these slides in your packet. It's a little easier to see.
Going over the inspection report, DOT is required to inspect all bridges. That includes pictures. So here are some from anywhere from 2012 to 2020. You can see the degradation of the timber piles there. The wall degrading and soil falling from behind it. The better picture showing the slope, as well as the rotation of the beds. Decay within them. Here's a great picture from 2012. You can clearly see the piles there. This is 20 years or so after the bridge was constructed. What the environment should do. Here's a little bit closer look. So DOT analyzes structures. Really, we grade them on two things: health index and sufficiency rating. We do that every inspection. This bridge in its latest inspection report had a health index of 38.6, 36.8, apologize, and sufficiency of 25.7. This is out of 100 scale. The lower that number, the more important it is to replace the bridge and repairs on. So now we've kind of gone through the history of the bridge and inspections we've seen. We'll talk about the county board meetings that have happened. So the bridge was closed in 2019, January. Discussions about the bridge closure were held in February and March of that same year, with a hearing held in May. Some excerpts from that hearing. We had various members of the public who came in and said, the bridge, if it was replaced, needs to have more clearance, needed to be repaired to allow for emergencies. Some people want complete removal of the bridge, more signage, floodings were issues in the area. You can say Chairman Fiegel is in support of keeping the bridge, but she's not in support of removing it. And the county can't afford to replace the bridge, that the state replacement of the bridge is the best option. Commissioner Page stated that he is opposed to removing the bridge, that he would like to be open for the traffic. Ms. Gail Dicker stated that she doesn't want to see vegetation removed. She was worried that the road is too narrow to pass, and would like to see her tax dollars used to build a new bridge. There were follow-up discussions from the hearing, where DOT came in and talked about the federal program, what options the county has to help with that replacement. And in February of 22, the board meeting decided to approve the agency resolution to move forward with the bridge replacement. So now I'm sorry about the condensedness of this slide. There's a lot of information in it. This is the Federal Bridge Replacement Program. DOT gets about $22 million annually for this program. That's spread across the state. This program is used for off-system bridge replacements. Off the top, money's taken out for inspections, scour analysis, load ratings, 10% settlement contingency, and the remaining set to bridge replacements. As I said before, DOT reviews all structurally efficient bridges in the state. As we rank these bridges based upon the efficiency, obviously the higher ranked it is, the more chance that it gets funded for replacement. And as more get funded, more of the pot of money is gone until it's all gone. So there's a whole list of bridges that have not gotten money that are still undiscussed. The money that's not used, that's already been allocated to bridges, is returned to that pot of money to be used to help deficiencies and funding sources for the bridges. Again, this is a small pot of money of a large group of items that need replaced. So all the money stays within that pot. DOT averages about 4 bridges a year under this program. District 2 gets anywhere from 0 to 2, and that's various stages of funding. It's either PD, design, right-of-way, or construction. This current year, we have 232 off-system structurally deficient bridges in Florida. District 2, the district I'm from, the one that Taylor County is in for DOT, only had 1 on that short list for this year. They show you how hard it is to get on that list. And looking at Taylor County as a whole for this program, the past 10 years, Taylor County's had 10 bridges replaced, either in construction, already been constructed, or in design ready to go to construction. So 10 bridges over the past 10 years. Now talking about the NEPA process, this is the federal rules that govern using federal funding. The National Environmental Policy Act. It's the description of why we do what we do, how we determine the best course of action for a project. We determine the class of action, the project description, purpose, and need. We'll determine alternatives from no build to our build analysis. We'll address the environmental issues, preparing the studies that are required, and we'll do any public involvement if necessary. The purpose and need of the Granger Bridge project, well, the purpose identifies your goals. What is it you're trying to accomplish? For Granger Bridge, it was to determine the best solution to replace the bridge. Your need identifies your deficiencies, your issues, your concerns that you have. When the county was hearing, it gave us that list. This is one easier needs to describe. Worried about detours, emergency services, vessel traffic underneath, evacuation routes, and safety. We start with the no build or the do nothing alternative. This is analyzed on every PD study. So this alternative basically says, what if you don't replace the bridge? Well, it's cheaper because it costs nothing. There are no environmental impacts, no right-of-way impacts. However, this alternative does not solve the purpose. It doesn't do what you need. Our build alternative, we coordinated it with the county, what we were looking to do. We used the FUT low volume design manual, we used the FUT design manual and the AASHTO low volume road manual, as well as the Florida Green Book. We analyzed all the environmental impacts, the right-of-way impacts, and this alternative does the purpose and need of the project. The environmental analysis, we got the state historic preservation officer's concurrence on it. We estimated the wetland impacts of 0.022 acres of permanent and 0.123 acres of temporary impacts. There are no contamination concerns on the project other than the requirements. We had a public meeting in February 28th and March 2nd. The 20th was the virtual meeting, March 2nd was the in-person one. 22 people registered for the virtual meeting. We had 5 written questions, 6 people spoke, gave us their comments and questions. The in-person meeting held on March 2nd. We had 30 people sign in. 11 gave oral comments and 4 written comments. We also allowed a 10-day period after that in-person meeting to email and call in your questions or comments and keep those as part of the record. So during that comment period, we had 8 phone calls or voicemails that we received, as well as 10 more emails. When you take out the duplicates, we had 11 people supporting the bridge and 9 people against the bridge who formally made comments. So because of that, the preferred alternative is the build alternative. It meets the purpose and need and goals of the project while minimizing impacts to the project. So I'm going to go back to one of his slides. This one. Just because, like I said, there's a lot of information there, but understanding the context of that information, looking at DOT receives $22 million per year. They satisfy all their bridge-related contracts.
for the inspection scour, things like that. The balance of that goes towards bridge replacements. DOT gets anywhere from 0 to 4. That's statewide. DOT District 2 averages between 0 and 2 per year. Taylor County has received, on average, for the last 10 years, 1 every year. There are 18 counties in District 2. That is unbelievably blessed for our community to be able to address our infrastructure needs to this degree on such a large district with such limited funds that, this is just unbelievably impressive. I want to say that he made reference to 2 meetings. If I can get to it. Is it the other way?
No, by the way.
2 meetings. One was in February of this year, and the other was in March of this year. The first one virtual, the second one was an in-person meeting that we had at the community center. There were actually several more meetings that occurred here where we have discussed this project more, quite a bit, actually.
One second.
I'll get there in a second. That's it. This was one. So just, don't think that these were the only 2 meetings that we've had on this. This stuff, like he had mentioned, started back in 2019. It was a pretty extensive public hearing at that point. A lot of the individuals there kind of solidified the objectives of what we were actually after. And, some of those were mentioned here, but in a nutshell, coming out of the actual residents in that area's mouth, was that, public safety, first and foremost, was one of the major considerations, not only for emergency vehicle accessibility, but for evacuation situations. The other was there had been an increased usage of a looped community in there for that area for access around that entire neighborhood. There was an objective to provide additional clearance for better boating access. And then the last 2 was the reliability for the future, that being that you were going to be replacing infrastructure that would provide easily 50 years of service. More notably, some of our bridges are in the 70-year vintage. And then lastly, taking full advantage of the benefit of federal funding versus relying on local funding. And then, how do I escape out of this? You can escape on the right one. There we go. So, where we left it, back in June, I believe it was, that's when we were here. We kind of had some constituents come in and discuss different opportunities for either continuing to pursue the project or possibly looking at something else. If you recall, the board left us with the direction to consider or try to determine if there was any possible opportunity out there to do something different. Other than the preferred alternative that you're seeing here, which is what he wound up with there. So what we did was kind of looked at the alternative that we provided you. Mind you, this is a single lane. This is a low speed bridge that we considered trying to provide a narrower, shorter design just wasn't plausible. We had already maximized how much we could minimize the bridge in this area. The second opportunity was, okay, now that you're in a 2-lane configuration, obviously we could go to a 2-lane configuration. Well, given some of the individuals down there's perception of the intrusiveness of the single-lane bridge, we kind of threw the 2-lane bridge off the table as well. So then the final option rested with some of what you heard was pedestrian only. So we did look at that. So we looked at a pedestrian only that would also accommodate, at least 1 or 2 of the alternatives would accommodate golf cart traffic as well, because that was some of the need that was before it. So what you're seeing here is, let me get rid of this, might be a little larger for you guys. Is you can see this is a timber design that is pedestrian. If you'll look in your packets, these are the pictures, but the text that goes with that discusses the various options. This one, excuse me, it does restrict access to this location here down to a vehicle only because of the tightness. As you see, we shifted it to co-locate on the bridge itself and then turn and come back in to provide vehicle access this way. Excuse me, this one is tight, but I believe it was 8 foot wide, if I'm not mistaken, so it will accommodate golf cart crossing. And this one is the first of those alternates on your sheet. It's right after the presentations. And you will see that that is a projected price of $1,070,000. The second alternative was more of a switchback design, and this one was actually proposed as a concrete structure. So this, very much like the other one, provides an 8 foot through here, but due to the switchback operation, it would prohibit golf cart access, so it would be a pedestrian-only configuration. This one was $1.5 million. And then the last one is an additional timber where we slid it a little bit to the east to expand the access to trailer vehicles to this western property here. And this one too was tight, but is feasible for golf cart access. And that one was literally which was a few dollars away from the first one at $1,072,000, excuse me. So looking at these, and in consideration of the original design that was put forward, we come to the conclusion and would make the recommendation that Granger Bridge replacement project, as it was proposed, still remains the most reasonably financially responsible option of any of those that have been presented or even considered. We suggest that to the extent that we hope the board would be in a position to reaffirm their position of support of this LAP agreement that was approved back in February of this year. And that being so that DOT will understand our support of the project and then continue in the design process. Because once you get past the PD&E phase in this federal funded configuration, changing paths down the road from this point forward results in Taylor County being responsible for the dollars spent since that PD&E phase. So we are wanting you guys to be very much aware that as we move forward, we still feel this is the most reasonable and important opportunity that we see out of the options we've considered. And changing that later will have financial consequences. So the recommendation that's in here is we are asking the board to confirm their continued support and then understand that when we come back later, which we will bring back a construction LAP agreement. Remember, all the LAP agreements are typically broken into a design phase and a construction phase. And in that construction phase, you will have a resolution, just like we did in the first one, that says the board is supporting this and we authorize the chairman to sign this on behalf of the full board. So that is coming down the road very soon. And we hope we've been responsive to the direction of the board back in June. There's not a lot of options out there, given the type configuration and the nature of that area. But we believe wholeheartedly that the option that has been presented still should be presented and remains the most, as I said, the most financially responsible option that's there. Do you guys have any questions?
So what you're saying is that right now, we're not responsible for any cost as of right now tonight, right?
Yes, ma'am, because you can just listen to what I say, catch me if I say it wrong. Up through the PD&E phase, as you saw Michael present, there was a no-build alternative and a preferred alternative or a design option. Because that, up to that point, includes that no-build, if no build was selected, then there are no cost responsibility for the local agency. So yes, ma'am, because we're at that phase, If we progress beyond it and get into the physical design, which some of it may have happened already, we're not financially responsible because no option is all, you could say, we're picking the no bill, and you wouldn't be responsible for any cost.
Right, and I just want to reiterate, if we get through this and if we don't make a change like that, I cannot change the PD after the fact again. This is kind of the timeline to make that change now and pivot. Because in the future, when we start going through design, we start going through the right-of-way process, can't justify changing the PD. If that is the case, it's not just the design, it goes all the way back to the PD, that would have to be reversed.
But at this point,
At this point, that is not the case now.
responsible for those
If
dollars.
you change your mind now, if you decide to not follow this project, we can change the PD. We'll work out the little bit that's been done in design. I don't know the answer to that particular one, but the PD will say no to no build is the preferred option based upon the immediate. If you go past today, that's not gonna be the case. I cannot change it after that.
I have another question. So, we received this kind of funding, which, as you say, Kenneth, is quite unbelievable that we would get this kind of funding this fast. That just doesn't happen. So my concern has been and still is that if this is turned down, how will that affect us in future funding? Because, we went to bat for this, and we had a room full of citizens, and this is what they wanted. And then all of a sudden, some of them decided, no, I don't want this. So how would that affect us with future funding, because we rely on funding?
So when it comes to bridge replacement, I can't say for certain. I wouldn't think that would be impact. Again, that's based upon issues with bridges, how they're at, how they're placed. That's all. What condition is the bridge in? Lap-wise, it might. I'm not that group, so I don't know what impact this would have with lap certification. We'd have to ask that.
But it wouldn't look good, though. Would you agree to that, Emma?
Yes, ma'am, I would agree that it doesn't look good. I mean, we did, as you said, the closure came about after a prompt corrective action back in 2019. We went and at the direction of the individuals that discussed it and presented it before the board then, went to DOT and said, we need to figure this out. There was a lot of dynamics going on then with respect to the calculations and equations and what was getting funded versus what wasn't. And these lower volume, smaller community type bridges weren't making the list. There was like 50 each year, I think is what makes the list. And we were skirting the bottom of it, routinely. So it was just like amazing. Not only that we finally made it into the eligibility positions, but how quickly that happened relative to how long we expected to have to wait. We were envisioning 10 years as what some of the discussions was going on back then. And obviously 4 years later, we're standing up here and saying, please continue, because this kind of thing just does not happen.
And so, and I understand that federal money is not free money. I get it, okay? We all pay for it. It probably cost us a fraction of a cent out of our pocket, maybe a year. So that means it's not free. But for moving forward, in the situation that we're in right now, Kenneth, how much would it cost us? The same amount? We would either have to have no bridge or something very, very inexpensive, especially what we're facing now in this county with the closure of the mill.
You're not going to have something that deviates largely from the cost that DOT is telling you it is going to cost them to replace it now.
We would never do that.
Ma'am, you're not going to have a spare $2 million or, including all of the different components, a $5 million bill to take and put this forward. Nor, and I apologize for going past this, those pedestrian-only options that I gave you, that's not a possibility with DOT money. Those are local funds. So if you choose, no, we don't want this vehicle bridge, we want to go with a pedestrian bridge, you are saying, okay, we're willing to self-fund $1 million to allow people and a golf cart to cross this water course when we could have spent zero local dollars and allow people and golf carts and vehicles and emergency vehicles access across that waterway. That's why we're feeling it's that important.
I've got a few questions, if you would, and I appreciate the emphasis that we really don't have a way to determine if there's an impact for future consideration. That's not what you want, Scott. So I appreciate you bringing that honestly and making that known. But I would ask, why was the bridge closed to vehicle traffic? Could you tell me that again? I know we recently said it was closed to all traffic at the last meeting.
The actual date is
It was January something on yours.
January 2019.
So since 2019, there's been no vehicle traffic allowed or permitted for the bridge.
Vehicles. Remember, if you remember some of the history, we actually went back and had their inspectors analyze the capacity of it so that we could continue to allow pedestrian crossing as well as golf cart
So
access.
4 years?
It was closed 1/20/2019, or excuse me, just says
Over 4 years?
I apologize.
So there hasn't been any permitted vehicle traffic on that bridge for over 4 years. And yet, we've made the statement that there may be the need for safety and evacuation and things of that nature. We just went through a hurricane. The bridge is closed. So there's been no traffic on that bridge, and folks were safely evacuated out of that area. So we could say that they can use the access points they have now without use of the bridge.
That is true, but you can also say there'd be more access and it's safer with it.
Well, you could, but we can say we just went through a hurricane. The bridge is closed. There were no evacuees using that bridge.
It takes one tree to block.
And I will follow up on that because it was one of the public hearings, the early on that Ms. Dickert, she presented the scenario of a stalled vehicle being on one of those roads, preventing your access from being able to go out through there. And I will say that the public safety, we documented the comments and concerns from the individuals during those original public hearings to come up with those concerns. So we are reiterating what the people who lived there communicated to us, that public safety was important to them.
But you would also agree, we just went through a natural disaster, and we had to evacuate this area. And yet, the evacuees were able to leave without the use of this bridge because it's closed. Is that true?
Absolutely, you're true as can be, and it is
So
fortunate.
that's what I want to try to understand and make sure I hadn't missed something in that respect. So there's no traffic allowed on the bridge at all now. So if it were the decision of this board to move forward to no build and remove the bridge, we can still see and say that given the experience that we've had in the last month or so, we can still safely evacuate the residents without this bridge. Because we see what we've been able to do, given the experience.
So here,
We didn't sign up for that way. But since we went through the experience, this is the occurrence. Sure.
So I would just say, why? Why would I want to do that? I have an opportunity to add redundancy, long-term redundancy to that community and improve the accessibility, the standard of living for that area at no expense to the local community. Why would I take and reject that, knowing that individuals are down there saying, please do this?
Well, I'd be glad to hear from some of those folks, I think, maybe this evening. But what I would say is, the reason that or how I would answer your question is the reality that we went through a natural disaster where evacuations were ordered, they were mandated. Yet this traffic on this bridge is closed, and these folks were able to evacuate. So the answer to your question as to why I wouldn't do that is because I believe that in this sense of the closure, it's been demonstrated that we can safely evacuate the residents. And that in this regard, though it's not a local expense to taxpayers, it is still very much an expense to the taxpayers. And so the why
is for the savings and the possibility, I believe, I understood that this money would stay in that pot if it weren't expensed. I believe I understood that earlier.
This money is going to another bridge, yes, sir.
Yes, but it doesn't go away. It doesn't go back to the federal government. It stays in this pot.
In state, yes, sir.
So it could still be invested in infrastructure that has been demonstrated to be a need in respect to the condition and the location.
More than likely, I'm going to a project that's already been funded. That
Sure.
should-
Right,
Yes.
I understand. So that would be,
The state, yes.
certainly. I mean, I think the understanding is it could be a statewide need, but it could be allocated to another one of these projects that's on your list.
That's on.
The approved list that was on one of the previous slides.
That was already completed.
Those are bridges that have already been done.
Okay, but you have future projects in Taylor County.
In Taylor County, on the bridge replacement program, I am not aware of it, sir.
On Beach Road, there's no more of those?
There are two right now that is in construction.
So, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what's on the future list.
Sure. But it is possible that those funds could be invested in Taylor.
Depending on the condition they're in, where they are on the list, they're going to get funded when they need to get funded, regardless of the decision.
Awesome. And I think that'd be
This
fair.
money won't be allocated to anything particular, it's the next bridge up. Is where it's gonna go.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm not here to argue with y'all, obviously. But I would like to just reiterate that if these funds are not used as they were intended in the first place, there's no guarantee, I think I'm hearing that, there's no guarantee that that money is going to stay in a pot sitting here exclusively for Taylor County for whatever we decide to use it for. Is that correct?
The guarantee is that there is no exclusive Taylor County pot that it goes into. It is a statewide pot.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I just say just to cut some of the options out, that there's really only two options here for this board to look at. And one option, I think, is probably what's already on the table, that probably already even been approved, is build the bridge as it is, slated, or to remove the bridge. And I know we have a lot of citizens that we're gonna hear from, I'm sure here shortly, but there's two options on the table. Yes, we did have a hurricane that did just come through, we were able to evacuate people, that's all true. And, but, we also, the board has to do things about it. The bridge is beneficial for future growth. I will say that, I wasn't, probably a couple of us wasn't on this board back in 2019 when folks were probably up there screaming that they wanted this bridge. So maybe some of the same folks are not wanting the bridge, so they're kind of back in the corner, 4 years later. Now we don't want the bridge, and the bridge is really slated to be built. So, but anyway, that's the board's options right now. Is to either we're going to listen to the citizens, and the options are to, because we don't have $1 million of any sort. We have $500,000 to go spend on a wooden bridge of any sort. So, either to build the bridge as it is per DOT and Mr. Dudley's direction, or to just remove the bridge altogether and not have a bridge. We, I don't know if we want to listen to the citizens at this time, if there's more discussion. We'd like to, yes, sir. So, there's not any more discussion by any of the board members, we maybe start listening to some of the citizens and
Y'all know me, Mike Williams, live in Steen Natchez. One of the only two houses on Granger where people live full time. We knew the storm was coming, we got out safe. No issues whatsoever. I think everybody in here right now is on the same page. We want what's best for the county, we want what's best for the homeowners of the community. Let's take the bridge out, leave it out. Shore up the walls, put up barricades, take it out and leave it out. this county just got double whammy, kicked in the gut. And the mill levy is gonna hurt this county tremendously. A whole lot more money can be saved by us if we don't put that bridge in. If we've got maintenance in the future, you've got more maintenance on the roads, you've got a lot more expenses. If we don't need to spend anybody's money foolishly, and especially ours as taxpayers. The storm proved that the bridge is totally unneeded and definitely unwanted. We don't want that bridge. If the bridge was to get built, we just worry that we're gonna have increased traffic that will make the roads tear up more. We got the stretchers coming down there all the time anyway. They would double the amount of time through that approach. I personally talked to Jason Show and Corey Simon. They know we're struggling. They know what just hit us. Between the hurricane and the mill. They both said they'd get on board with the county to reappropriate the funds for more important projects. Again, let's take out the bridge and leave it out. That's all I got to say.
Come on, you come on up, you had your hand up first, come on. State your name and address, if you will.
My name is Jeff Rowe. I live in Steenhatchee, 1208 Northeast First Avenue. One thing that safety to me is a big deal. I worked in power plants for 33 years. I was educated on how to take care of myself and the people around me. The one thing that hasn't been addressed with this design, and I've spent a few hours out there recently. Since the last meeting, we've cleaned up, visited, and watched. There's a lot of looky-loos right now. Some of them are running around trying to help others. Most of them just want to see how bad everybody got it. That road, in all context, is no more than a 10-mile-an-hour road. There are hidden driveways, there are sharp curves, it's dusty and muddy. It's kind of an unsafe thing anyway, over 10 mile an hour in my opinion, but we have children running around on golf carts now and 4x4s and side-by-sides. People having a drink on the evening. What I saw on that bridge was a launch pad. You got this dirt road, and now you got this nice paved curve. And I guarantee you somebody's going to overdo it. We got a lot of people out there that are driving around on these vehicles. You put a nice paved curve in front of them. We've all done it. Most of the guys I know do. Ricky Racer is in our blood. But that's a safety aspect that I really feel is overlooked. You take a dirt road and put this beautiful sweeping paved curve, elevated, somebody's gonna get hurt. That's all I had to say about the safety, but I do have something that I wrote out here to appease me. Because as I look around this chamber, I see a few of us that are close or into our golden years, myself well into those years. And it's my guess the cumulative total of our years of experience and wisdom is around 1,000 years. That's a lot of years, with a lot of experiences and a lot of wisdom. Never in my life have I seen so many constituents request that the government does not spend money on a project that's already been funded. That we've asked to have it reallocated to something that would benefit, in our opinion, more. Our country is in an economic crisis. Our states and municipalities and our counties is a crisis. I urge you guys as voting for us as our representatives to look at another option, use this money for something that will benefit our community and not cost us money down the future. Removing that bridge removes your responsibilities for future maintenance and the possibility of somebody having a bad accident somewhere that never happened before. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Jesse James Messick. I live in the other end of the county in Shady Grove. But as a taxpayer, I wanted to have a little say in this matter. I've looked at that bridge down there a couple of times, and I've looked at the property appraisers about landowners in that neighborhood. You accommodate something like 6 landowners, maybe 7. And I'm looking at the price of this thing that you're talking about spending, and I understand it's state money, a lot of it, but it's still our money. And I count on the county commission here to keep a constant line with our state representatives to make sure that that kind of funding is continually flowing into our county. And of course, you've heard me speak before, I'm always one that is a proponent for an even playing field. So if you were to accommodate these half a dozen landowners with a bridge to bridge their property, you should be willing to do the same thing for every citizen in the county. And if you did that, I did some real rough math. I'm not going to give you exact figures, but I can tell you the figures. If you did that for every citizen living in this county, you would have to figure above $10 billion that you would spend to accommodate every landowner in this county. So I really hope that, when we consider these things, we'll consider the whole picture, the big picture here, and understand that everybody matters in this county, and that the state funding should be set up in such a way that this county will be able to address projects which we all can see need much more attention than what this little bridge will provide as far as, the advantage to all citizens. That's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say about that. Thank you.
You mentioned the money. How much
Can I get your
money?
name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda Berger, 302 Horseman Club, or in Steinhatchee Peninsula Drive in the Granger subdivision. You mentioned the money that should be put out to everybody in here. Now, how much money would we be, a penny, 10 or $1 million a piece if we do the bridge? Yes, everybody fared getting out. Thank you, Jesus. But we still have our property down there. We still have people that want to get the boat in and out. There's nobody flying around the corners. He even mentioned there's multiple sharp turns. So I don't think it's gonna hurt to have the bridge. I think it's a good idea. And all of these other people, they have changed their mind after mind after mind. What are they gonna do next? I hope y'all go for the bridge. Thank you.
What? Name and address, please.
Yes. Carlos Norquist, 1711 Bay Street, Steenack. Yes, gentlemen. As I was watching this, and I was gonna ask, if I may, what is the total cost if we go through with the initial plan of the FDS?
The bridge itself, I believe, is 1.8.
1.8 million
For the
Correct.
for the DOT? Okay. How many square feet are we talking about?
I think it's 15 to 16 or so feet wide and 100 foot, whatever the Florida slab beam is. I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head.
Thank you. Somebody put that together,
you'll figure out how many thousands of dollars it is per foot on the building of this thing. I think as, our commissioner here, Mr. Michael Newman said, I think it's a waste, an absolute waste of money. Our government, we're complaining, is spending too much money, which we all should be agreeing. Our state spends too much money. Why can't we at the local level, for once, stand up strong and say, no, we're not gonna spend more money, we're gonna save. I mean, if we all go through this in our local, homes and just keep spending it, ain't gonna be there anymore. And this little bridge, costing us kind of money, I think is absolutely abhorrent. So, no, it's a waste of money and a waste of time. Thank you, sir.
So my name is John Darr. I own the house at 455 Granger. So as that bridge comes around to the south side, that pavement will end at my driveway. So I own this house right there, right next to mine. Okay, so that pavement's gonna dump right there at my driveway. We've owned the house since 1998. We love the area. It's a wonderful area. Taylor County is a wonderful community. I don't want the bridge. We don't want the bridge as it's been proposed. If you think that that bridge is not going to cost Taylor County money in the long run, you are crazy. There is no way. I'm an insurance agent. I have 15,000 auto insurers. If you don't think they run into stuff and destroy things and run into guardrails and all that kind of stuff, I promise you, I have claims every day. So the cost of this, I get it, it's coming from DOT. They're paying a huge majority of that, or they're paying all of it. But Granger is not meant to have that much traffic. The traffic that will come through this bridge will wear out Granger. And they will be having to grade it constantly. So that cost is going to increase. Lots of other costs will increase. And I also own a business here in Perry. I own Newport Insurance Agency. This county's in trouble. They need to save as much money as they possibly can for other things that are going on in this county. And I'm more than happy to help and jump in any way I can. But spending money on this bridge is just wrong. It's not gonna be safe for my family. There's gonna be a lot more traffic come off that bridge and on that road. Period. That's, and that's coming from somebody that lives right there. And my neighbor, who actually is to the left of me, closer to the bridge, agrees. He would love to be here, but he got sick. So he said, I'm telling you, John, let those folks know, I do not want this bridge. It is not a safe solution. It is not the right solution. And it will cost Taylor County a lot of money in the long run. Maybe not in the beginning, but in the long run, it will cost Taylor County a ton of money. So, thank you for your time.
Can I say one more thing? I talked to David Lowry, and I also talked to Gary Masters, and neither one of them want that bridge like that.
Yeah, I don't know where they got the numbers from, but the people that they said support the bridge, I've been to all these meetings. I can't imagine those numbers are accurate. There's no way.
My name's Mike Baker, 217 14th Street, Steenhatchee. I've rode that road many times. I used to run my go-kart with my golf cart all the way around. It's a nice scenic ride. The people that want the bridge, the people that want the nice scenic ride, it's not the landowners that live in there. You've got a 10-mile-an-hour road and you're gonna build a 40-mile-an-hour bridge. Makes no sense. None at all.
Amen.
And I don't believe there's a homeowner on that road, maybe there is, that wants it. That's all I got to say.
I'm John Dar Senior. And I own the same house with my son. And being old and skeptical, my question is, to any of you, you said it normally takes 10 years to get this kind of funding? Well, gee, it happened in 4, but nobody knows why? All of a sudden, I want to know why. How did this happen? Where did this come from? Do any of you know why it went through in 4 years instead of 10?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the second thing I will tell you, I'd like to know that, but don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel living on that road, because you don't, I do.
I don't believe I've said that, sir.
You said if you were a homeowner, you would be for the bridge. You don't know that, you're not a homeowner. But I'd like to know why it happened so easily and so fast. Makes you wonder, who greased the wheel? That's all I have to ask.
Melissa can probably provide additional details on the shortness of the timing. But my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, is that back when, around about the time that this one became an issue, they were looking at the intricacies of the calculations that go through the various variables to determine the eligibility. They were aware that bridges and infrastructure in the smaller communities that were lesser of a tax base were being overlooked. They made some of those changes to try to provide some equality in those calculations, and that's why this timing went from what we were anticipating to what we were able to take advantage of.
Melissa Moore with DOT, work in the structures maintenance office. Kenneth is correct. Whenever I come into this position, believe it or not, bridges on dirt roads were disqualified. And it was like, well, they have typically a low volume ADT, they're not traveled as much, or we can get more of these more high volume bridges replaced. I'm from a small county, Hamilton County. I know what the traffic's like on a dirt road. It can be just as busy as State Road 51. So I propose that we make changes to the bridge replacement program, allowing some of these smaller structures on dirt roads and in neighborhoods to be considered for replacement. Like Kenneth said, it happened all at about the same time. Ranger Drive come up so quickly because of the condition. It was so bad structurally that it became number one from a statewide perspective for replacement. That's how it got on there so quickly, because we made adjustments in our district that no longer disqualified structures like this, because people living in those neighborhoods or people that travel these low volume ADT dirt roads are just as important to me and to our district and our district secretary, Greg Evans, to be able to traverse those structures and get to point A from point A to point B.
Anyone else?
Wow.
Do we have anyone on the line to speak?
If I may ask our engineer a question. Kenneth, can you address if the bridge is not built? What happens as far as, I think it's folks that are on the south side, if that becomes a dead-end road, is there any space for folks to turn around, or are they going to have to utilize private driveways?
There is not space. And matter of fact, in one of the public hearings, one of the points of contention was that they were asking us, please hurry up and do something with this bridge, because I have had to line my property with ropes to keep people from coming down that road and turning around in my driveway and tearing up my yards. everything that was espoused in those meetings was included and addressed in the option you have in front of you.
So in other words, if we would, instead of having a loop in that subdivision, you would have 2 dead-end roads,
2 dead-end streets with no turnarounds.
which obviously isn't an issue now, but if there is any growth in the area or if people become full-time residents, sir?
You can't grow any bigger, it's not, there's no.
You didn't let me finish. I said as far as people going from part-time residents or seasonal residents to perhaps full-time residents, my question is that would that become an issue and how do we address it?
Has it been addressed currently?
Well, that's what I just said. It's not because, and I believe maybe it's not an issue now because we don't have full-time residents, perhaps, on that road. Mr. Mike, isn't that what you said?
There's only residents. Benji Tootin's gonna move back down there, but me and Susan are the only ones who live on the whole road.
So how many houses are on your side of, on your road?
The majority, all of them, except, yeah, all of them are on our side of the road.
How many homes are there
Insurance?
on that side?
On that, let's see, there's about
That's 20.
20, there's 29 property
there's
owners
20 on
on the
that
whole.
There's 20 on that side?
And
Okay.
there's-
Yeah,
And there's others on the opposite
I
side.
think there's 17
No.
on our side. No, there's no house.
There's no houses on the other road. They're not houses, but people are putting, trailers
Yes.
there
Yeah.
and buying up the lots on that back side.
And that would be my only question. I mean, I completely understand what people are saying, but, 5 years from now, or however many years, if that becomes more traveled, if that road is traveled more, is that going to create an issue as far as not having space for folks to turn around except private properties?
I don't mind, they can turn around my
They've
driveway.
been turning around our driveway for 20 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't care.
That's why, it's just a question, and I think it's a fair question.
Turnaround sign would be cheap.
Yeah.
It's already
no
there, it
turnaround.
says no turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says dead end, no turnaround.
So do people have to back down the road?
No, it's like, that's right at the front, when you come in, right there at 17th Street. I put it up, so I know.
So, answer to your question though,
Right.
the more residents, the residents have a place to go. They're not gonna go to the end of the road and need to turn around. They're gonna go to their home, they're gonna go out. They know it's there. It's the people that don't live on the road, that drive down the road to see what's on the road, that probably don't need to be there anyway.
Exactly.
Hit the dead end and go, now what do I do? Well, it says right there, that it's a dead end, there's no turnaround. Either way you go, even on Peninsula, if you went down Peninsula, there's no place to turn around. And there's not gonna be a bridge on it. So I mean, it's not like it's turning around is an issue.
Okay, that's why I asked.
I keep and I'm sorry, but I keep my boat at David Lowry's back dock. I take the garbage dock, which is at the beginning of where that is. And it's just this for him makes it more difficult to get on and off his property. That's what he's against it. Not having the bridge actually helps with getting boats through. It just doesn't give us a place to go through. But it will keep people that don't need to be back there from being back there.
More signage could address the issue about the traffic. So if there were more signage at each roadway stating that it was a dead end, wouldn't that alert folks to the traffic? And so couldn't that be a successful,
You had a dead end sign,
At
and a
each
no
one.
turnaround sign at the beginning of each road, that pretty much answer all them questions. And then if somebody did get down there, it'd be their fault to have to turn around in somebody's yard, I'm fine with the no turnaround and a dead end sign on both roads myself. And I've heard it both ways several years now with this bridge. And I'm at the point, I'm ready to make a motion to do away with that bridge and end this business. I mean, that's where I'm at.
that's a motion?
Yeah, motion.
What will it cost y'all to shore it up if you do that? What's the county?
Second that motion that's on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. She had a,
Yeah, I agree. I do have the same question. I mean, just what would it cost us as far as if we did remove the bridge, then, what's the cost to I'm just gonna say for lack of maybe seawall of some sort, I mean, what,
Do you remember the cost that was included in those two pedestrian, or the three pedestrian, analysis? I'm thinking on the order of 50 grand, but I don't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere in that order of magnitude.
Could we use FEMA money since we've had a hurricane that just tore it up?
Yeah, it's not even close to passable now, even if you didn't have it blocked off, there's.
We have to remove it. At the end, we have to make it untraversable now because of the safety aspect. We should have done it a week or two ago. We have to make that bridge untraversable this week.
So what's the cost to us right now to?
Every bit of cost to remove this portion of it, to make it untraversable, and then to remove the remaining components of the bridge, shore up both walls, so that those no longer create a safety hazard. All of that comes to us. I remember the estimates being somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 grand,
Okay, so.
local dollars.
If we just do away with the bridge and not move any further with this, so I'm guessing that you'll have to put up some kind of barricade or something.
Yes, ma'am.
So what would be the cost of that?
That's what I'm telling you.
Do you think that would be included in?
I was kind of looking,
Already very.
I was kind of listening to them, to see if that's what the cost was, and in those estimates, I just think it's somewhere around there.
The estimates didn't have a barricade, they had to remove them, I think you're right, it's about 50 grand. I can't give you an estimate.
So all we would eventually do is probably use something along a barrier wall to prevent access to come into the canal.
So what would it be? I'm sorry, I missed that. What, would it be some kind of concrete structure or something that would?
Yes, ma'am, something substantial, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It would have to be traffic ready, yes, ma'am.
And LaWanda, where would that funding come from? Are we budgeted for that?
No, ma'am, and I don't know how much we have in the.
I mean, you would pull it out of secondary road paving cost, or you would pull it out of reserve for contingency.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but regardless of what it costs now, it's going to happen now. Whether bridge goes in or bridge doesn't go in, this has got to happen because it's already crumbled.
The difference would be that its ultimate removal and addressing it to abutments gets included in the cost of the bridge replacement and not fall on local dollars.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I've heard this last 6 years. And only thing I can figure out, it's a bridge to nowhere. I've been told that 4 or 5 times, Thomas. It's a bridge to nowhere. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know what that nowhere is. But when I looked at it, and what I saw happen during this storm and stuff, the debris that was there, and what happened, that bridge is unsafe. And if ain't nobody been on, a car haven't been on it in 4 years, there's no sign saying it's going to have to be there the next 4 years. I understand.
If you take the bridge out, the property up the canal will be more valuable, and you will get more tax dollars eventually. So if you take it out, all those folks that live up the, I don't know, Mike, what's the name of the roads back there?
Peninsula.
Yeah, all those properties will be more valuable and will increase your tax dollars. So take it out. It's fine with us. Take it out. You'll make money if you can make those properties up there waterfront where they can get a bigger boat back up in that canal. They'll sell and and they'll be worth more in the long run.
Mr. Chair, call for the question.
All right. We are ready to vote? All right. We have a motion on the table by Commissioner Moody to remove the bridge.
Exactly.
We have a second by Commissioner Newman.
Wait, can I just clarify that motion? I'm sorry. I mean, I've got to remove the existing bridge, to not build the new bridge, and remove the existing bridge.
Yeah,
Is that the motion?
the verbiage is gonna have to be to terminate
Okay.
and cancel the LAC agreement, because that's what we're contractually entered into with DOT right now, correct? We're gonna have to cancel out of that.
All right. We have a motion and a second to cancel out of the existing agreement and, remove the bridge totally. All in favor?
Lord have mercy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. We love coming to you.
No, you can't. Do it. I was just saying, my vote.
All right, we'll move along, county staff items. Report, 18.
There's bullet.
Board to consider approval of the proposed all-state change order for the Taylor County Jail Rehab and Housing Addition Design Field Project. Agenda by Mr. Smith.
So as y'all are aware, we are doing a housing addition, out at the Taylor County Jail. Some renovations within the existing facility. This all went out as a design build project. We went through various negotiations to get the GMP down to what the FDLE grant would support. And then we had an additional request to extend the grant so that the construction timeline, I think is 334 days, that's right, would also be achievable. During those early negotiations, given that the housing addition was the primary focus of the overall project, we went back and forth on some of the size changes, configuration changes, ultimately to get it to a proposal that we could get the board to support. During the construction process, the activities moved into some of the renovations in the existing facility, and it became apparent that there was a divergence between, a disparity between what Allstate was expecting to have to do in the existing facility versus what we were anticipating they were going to do in the existing facility. Some of that had to do with perceptions of, are these going to be cells? Are they going to just be rooms that we're going to renovate? Are you telling us to renovate coming from the hallway, or are you telling us that's the point of access? The long and short of it is we understood that there was some responsibility on both parties, that being some on staff level as well as Allstate's perspective. In that, you see before you itemization of the costs in order to address room, I think it's 111, 134, and 135 to create holding cells in the existing facility. And what you see is that the original cost for that renovation started at a total of $145,000 and some change. Recognizing some shared responsibility associated with that, we were able to work with Allstate to reduce that to an $85,000 amount. Which we felt was reasonable given the way that the whole situation kind of came about. Even though this is a $60,000 or so reduction in that cost, as you well know, the dollars that are associated with this project are limited to the FDLE grant of the $4.6 million. So there's not an additional funding that's just sitting there for this. What we are suggesting is to use, and these numbers are current as of the date of filing this agenda item, is that you use the balance of the 0200 cost center, which is the jail, county jail inmate medical. At that time it had 45,000 in it at the end of the fiscal year. Excuse me. And then we would ask to make up any difference to achieve that $85,000 out of reserve for contingencies. What we're suggesting, because of the late juncture of closing out last fiscal year versus this fiscal year, is to authorize that any remaining monies in 0200 will roll forward into the current fiscal year, but stay in that cost center. And then whatever difference there is from what we expect to what there actually winds up being is to make up that difference out of reserve for contingencies in next fiscal year. So it kind of minimizes the burden going forward into next fiscal year, which is today or yesterday, I guess. Today, excuse me. But, it recognizes that we submitted this last week, and there are probably some expenses between last week and the end of the fiscal year that may make that 45 change somewhat. So that's our recommendation. I asked Major Johnson to be here just in case you had any questions relative to the perceived necessity of these. I am not the jailer by any means, but what I am understanding and appreciative of is when they convey to me that how they believe this will be a huge benefit to their operations out there, I have to take note and listen. I know the housing addition is doing a tremendous benefit for them. Renovating this existing facility gets rid of a lot of the maintenance headaches that they've had, but also has the opportunity to provide additional holding space that they express a need for. So if you have any questions of me relative to the project or finances, I can do it. Usually relative to the operations, I have to defer to the technical expert.
What do you anticipate the cost to us may be?
The cost will be that $85,000. And Conrad understands some of this. When you have a contractor that's in a project like this and he tells you those costs weren't in my numbers, you wind up having the principle of non-betterment. So he has to have the opportunity to include his first cost, which is this is what it would have cost had it been in there from the beginning, versus you taking the advantage of and saying, we did a walkthrough, you knew this was your responsibility, you got to eat this cost. Because that's how we positioned ourselves to get them to drop that cost $60,000.
Cost right now is so important to us. We don't need to be spending any money. I mean, listen to me, we don't need to spend any money that we don't have to.
And we understand, obviously, the gravity of the situation, and that was why I tried to take and maximize the advantage of monies that were unexpended. Instead of those rolling into cash carry forward for the next fiscal year, go ahead and earmark those and keep them as a county jail allocation, and then make up your difference, which would be as small as it can be under the reserves.
But if you had something to happen out there, like, something went out and you had to replace something big, where would that money come from?
Well, and just to bring everybody up to speed, and things have changed even since our last conversation. So we have, I would say, several months of inmate medical bills that have not been paid yet, that we will gather and pay out of last fiscal year, because the first was the first day of a new fiscal year. I had to move $6,000 just today to cover inmate medical bills. So that number has already changed from 45,000 to 39, but I fully anticipate that there will be more bills before the end of the year, because there's always a lapse with inmate medical bills. So that may not be there by the end of the year, or we may have 10 or 20,000 instead of 39,000. I just don't know until we get all of those bills in, and those are impossible to anticipate.
There's a likelihood of this cost increasing. So it could be less, but you expect this is going to be the top.
No,
I don't believe it's going to change at all.
Negotiated rate is.
We went through three revisions of this to get it to this level. Every one of those went from 145 to 93 to 85.
Anything to add, Major?
Sorry?
You got anything to add?
I mean, he explained it pretty good, I think.
I see.
Well, let's do this. How important are room 134, 135, and 111 as the way they're going to be reconfigured to you guys?
Yeah, well, they're very important, over the years, the, type of inmates they're bringing in now, they're not healthy. Most of them, they're missing limbs, they're even a lot elderly. and you can't put them in population. You know, we try not to farm them out to other counties that hold that expense. Put them in hospitals where, that's very expensive there too, plus you gotta have staff on 24/7, so the medical cells that were added on back there and in the new addition is very important in saving the county a lot of money and keeping the staff in the jail and all at the hospitals all the time.
So if I understand that proposal is to use the balance of the 0-200 funds with a combination of the contingency to pay the in full 85,470.
Yes, sir.
I'd make that a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Yeah, I know a lot of changes has recently come about, but this is, for me, this is a project that's already kind of underway before. And at some point, I agree, we do have to stop. But new projects, we probably do need to, depending on the magnitude and what the benefit is, we probably would need to, hold off on it. So, we probably already bid about it, we got something that's long term. Move forward, so, for no other discussion.
No other discussion. Hey, I'm with that. I think we need to go ahead, since we're there, we need to go ahead and do it.
So we have a motion. Motion by Commissioner Newman and a second by Commissioner Moody. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
All right. 19, the board to consider approval of the grant pre-application and required support documents to the Federal Aviation Administration requesting funding assistance for the apron lighting project construction phase at Perry Foley Airport, presented by Roland Cox. Natalie.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a grant application, pre-application, because FAA requires you to do a pre-application. Once they approve that, you go out for bid on the project and submit your actual application. The project has a total cost of $368,500. We're requesting funding assistance in the amount of $331,650. We already have our match in hand from FDOT. You've already executed the contract, so there'll be no funding whatsoever due from the county, and it's for the high mast lighting project on the airfield apron at Foley Airport.
Any discussion? We have a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. All right. Hold tight, man. I think we got you over. We'll move on to 20. Board to consider approval of grant pre-application package to the Federal Aviation Administration requesting funding assistance for the taxiway construction realignment project, phase 1 at Perry Foley Airport, presented by the grant writer. Melanie?
Yes. This was actually approved last year. We did a pre-application for the same project because we've got to realign our taxiways to meet current guidelines of FAA. FAA asked us to tweak the application and scale back the scope of work somewhat. So this is our second pre-application for this. It's a project in the amount of $3,450,000. We're requesting $3,105,000 from FAA. And again, we have already received our match from FDOT. We've already executed the grant agreement, so we already have those funds in hand. There is no match due from the county. We are applying to 2 different sources for this, using our $650,000 discretionary funds that we've set aside the last 4 years for this project, and then the rest of it will be FAA competitive funds. But again, this is a project sometime down the road. We hopefully will obtain the funding for it to be in compliance with FAA taxiway guidelines now. With no money from y'all. We plan on having it be 100% grant funded all the way.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve, we have a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Administrator, item 21, the board to consider an agreement with SBA for long-term FEMA trailer storage at the Perry Foley Airport, agented by County Administrator.
I would like to correct the wording on the agenda. It's actually an agreement with the GSA. I think I was getting my agencies mixed up during agenda prep. Board, can you explain the terms of this to the board?
Yeah, basically what's happening is, FEMA approached us about the, using the airport, because it's a big wide open area, with housing, trailers, mobile homes, wherever you want to call them.
I mean-
Temporary houses there.
I mean,
They said between 80 and 100.
Just for storage,
Just for
not to be
storage,
lived
Not to be
in.
lived in, just, well, they're gonna later distributing the units out to people, then they're gonna start collecting them back up. And they're putting one office trailer inside the fence, right next to the big hangar where the sports track used to be a long time ago. On the pilot's building, in that area, or the side. And they're gonna use part of the closed runway to put some of the.
the runway's gonna put it on, it's closed already.
Yes, sir.
We're not using
It's not gonna affect any air traffic, any air operations. FAA, we clear with FAA and they make sure it's not gonna.
Is he gonna give us $75,000 for that?
Sir?
He gonna give us $75,000 a year for that, or is that for the entire lease?
So that was I come up with 61 for one lease and there's 6,000 for another one. They have several options. So they have several additional options they could renew for. The first year I thought was gonna go, okay, the ground lease for 5 acres is gonna be the storage area. It's for a guaranteed year. The second lease, which is 4, they came back a second time to, put 2 office trailers in outside the fence for a 6-month term. I got a feeling it's gonna be longer than that, I don't know that, but they want a 6-month term, but 3 or 4 6-month renewals.
At least 3.
I believe the 5 acres also has 4 6-month renewals built into it.
This is clear through the FAA, so there's no issue about usage or such.
As a matter of fact, there's money built into this to build a Lime Rock Road from the closed runway to the gate on Carlton Cemetery Road.
There will be no traffic to other areas as far as potential damage.
No, yeah, basically, we would have to build a road, and then I think we figured about $20,000 in setup costs, depending on which option they go with, and they would pay that back to us. We just invoice them, they pay it back to us. And the reason the numbers are fluctuating a little bit is we don't have a firm commitment from them. We have to basically send them an offer in writing, and then it will be followed by a contract. But we have to get started with the process.
Were these terms generated from similar lease agreements with other entities? How do we generate these?
They ask for the term as far as the time frame. The revenue that we're discussing is based on fair market value, based on our survey that we had recently.
From 2020, I believe.
Right. So we were able to, Ward actually was able to come up with a per acre cost based upon the survey, which would be considered fair market value, which is what FAA looks for. And then the GSA agreed to those numbers. So utilities would either be pass through or would there's a couple of options for utilities. If they are not able to get utilities in their name, then that would be added to the lease amount. Otherwise, or it would be a pass-through if they can't be direct billed for the utilities. Were you able to get an answer from the utility company?
It'd be faster and easier if we put it in the county's name and then just pass it through. They're gonna pay us back and then it'll just be a $1 for $1 type thing. I get a bill. I scan the bill, I write them a bill from us, they ask back, in that 30 days, they can send it.
They did
30
say a
days.
30-day turnaround.
Now, 30 days, they turn the money around, it's passed back to the utilities.
Oh, so they've agreed to a 30-day term for payments.
Then the setup costs, they've agreed to 15 days, I believe, they told us on the phone.
I believe so.
Turnaround
Pretty
on
quick.
the setup costs.
So, are all those other trailers still out there that's been there? The other trailers that's been out there, they still there?
No, so we moved down to,
I didn't know if they moved them yet now, so we did get some, I know you probably heard some pushback from the citizens on the trailers that were there for so long, and maybe the cost of, I'm just talking on some of the cost of the hangers that they were being charged versus just people taking up a whole, runway, I guess, so to speak, for little to nothing. I mean, I know that, just looking at the numbers I'm looking at, and looking at, I mean, really, the lease is what, parking spots is basically what it is? They get a heck of a deal, but I
Well,
can't.
that lease agreement has expired
What?
with the previous
I know, but I mean,
That was not renewed.
now I'm referring to this one, that they're getting a heck of a deal, because I can't lease 100 spots for, our parking for less than $500,000 a year. I'm going to take.
But I believe that the GSA will probably not pay more than fair market value. Isn't that what they kind of indicated to us? So they have certain parameters that they will and will not pay. But, I mean, we ask for fair market value because that's something we can quantify and substantiate, and they agreed to it. But and I look at it as potential revenue for the airport, which we need. But if y'all aren't happy with the annual lease, we can ask for more. I just don't know that they'll approve it.
Like I said, this particular thing is temporary in nature. They did mention wanting to talk long-term something else, we don't know what yet.
Right.
They did say because of the positioning of the airport geographically, and the state, they want to start investing in long-term something, we just don't know what. They said, well, 4 or 5 months, they want to talk to us about that, and not yet. But all we have now is this, and it's kind of, like I said, it's 12 months, and where I got the number from originally, Commissioner, was, I thought the 1 acre extra offices were gonna be 12 months, it was a 6-month lease. That's where I lost the $6,000, the extra $6,000. Originally it was, I think, 72. We had back it down to 66, so I thought, I misunderstood things.
And that happened after we finished the agenda.
Yeah, this thing it's been a lot of moving parts going on with this thing. It's been, start out as just land lease and turn into utilities and then turn into office space, and then it's just gone all over the place. So I think we've about got it sorted out.
Mr. Bishop, you satisfied with that lease?
I had a couple of questions, because it appeared what was sent to me had a lot to do with documents of telecommunications, and then I asked the questions, the government wanting to lease all buildings, that would affect some of the provisions, and it's the county's responsibility to maintain. That's one of my questions.
Maintain the
So we're not leasing any buildings, Mr. Conrad. We would have to maintain the grounds.
Yeah, well, but see, this was, computers are a wonderful thing. And they sent something, and they don't, what they haven't done is they haven't ferreted out and made this agreement specific to what they're wanting, and put a bunch of other stuff in there that just doesn't have anything to do with what they're really wanting. And that's why the last thing I said, is it really, well, it wasn't the last thing I said. I assume that the last 2 pages, in other words, the short form lease would be used. In other words, all this other stuff, but you just, they just email you a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And what that makes everybody do is to read through it, make sure that there's nothing that's happening that we really don't even know about. So am I correct? And we're just signing the 2-page document?
I believe so. That was the 64.
The last 2 pages.
Yes, which is the offer.
I think they mentioned one time, didn't they mention on the conference call we had that if there's something we don't like, just scratch through it.
Yeah, they interline some things, but
I don't know these people, but I can see somebody saying, send this lease out to, Lawanda Pemberton with all this other stuff, which all they had to do was just take some of this, ferret out and send the 2-page lease, and I wouldn't have to have read all that stuff, which is a small font, but, my job is to try and figure out exactly what they're, what's happening with regard to this. No, the answer to the question, I don't have a problem with it, after I've read through it. Y'all follow what I'm saying?
The GSA Form 3626, which is the short form that you mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what we have to, and they're probably going to have to help me know where to put the numbers. That needs to be signed. We'll fill in the numbers, send to them as soon as possible, and then they'll use those numbers to prepare a formal document that we'll bring back to the board.
And write a check.
Sir?
And write a check. Right?
Not the same day, but
Not
yes.
the same day, but I mean.
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, as we're, like Commissioner Fiegel's saying, we're watching every single solitary penny, right? Company guys?
Well, we can ask for a little more then, we don't have to go with this.
Sir?
We can ask for a little more.
You can.
Let them give until it hurts, and, when it hurts, we stop right there and take what it gives. That's above, in excess of $100,000.
But the one thing about all of that is you ask for any more, and the money that they pay you is your money anyway, because you're paying taxes on that too, so it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Like you do over.
Okay.
I think if we use fair market value, that's something that we can quantify. And we have those numbers based upon the survey that we had done.
I think you're right. I think you're right, Lamont.
Mark, what you got?
Mark Bell, 338 Fort Sauter Road. I'm no longer on the Forest Fiscal Board. I retired last year. I was curious where outside of the airport they were considering putting those offices and how it might affect Carnival later this month.
It's not where the carnival is. It's not where the carnival is. Where they wanted to put the 2 buildings. No. Yeah,
It's on the other side of the road.
I was curious, I wanted to ask.
It's in front of, where the biggest hangar is, there's a concrete pad out in front of it.
That's exactly where it is. I just wanted to be sure. Figure out since I was here.
We can put it on the Carnival if you want us to.
No.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the line?
Second approved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve, all in favor? One, two, the board to consider approval for a request for debris removal within public cemeteries, presented by Kenny Baxter.
As part of the debris removal on county property, I had sent a list of the cemeteries that we maintain to our contractor, and then recall that we have a policy in place that clearly defines what maintenance the county performs, which is restricted to mowing. So after a discussion with the contractor and the folks on the public assistance side, the direction that I received was to follow our policy, which would be to ask the board for approval to perform this debris removal in public cemeteries within the county that we currently mow or maintain.
Will it be an additional cost?
Well, it will be, and it's eligible for FEMA reimbursement.
Let me ask you this. Did you say public cemeteries and one thing public use? That mean all cemeteries then, right?
Not all of them. There are some private cemeteries that we do not maintain. But just to put it in perspective, there's probably 45 trees in these cemeteries with large root balls. Some of them have fallen on grave sites, and some of them are large trees. And I don't believe that our Public Works Department can effectively remove the trees. And certainly not in a timely fashion. The cemeteries that are the hardest hit are Shiloh, Pisgah, and Spring Hill. And they have most of the trees. Now, I did ask for an estimate, just so I would have some idea of what it could cost for this debris removal, and it's quite high. It could be $300,000 or more. And again, because they'll have to use cranes to get those trees out, and we have to pay for. Yes.
Okay.
And you have to remember, when we are discussing debris removal, that will be FEMA reimbursement. We have to pay for monitoring as well. And that increases the cost of all these projects. That's the way it is on any debris removal. We have to pay for monitoring in order to be considered for FEMA reimbursement. But all of this will be submitted to FEMA for reimbursement. And, will be subject to those terms. So the most we should have to pay would be 12.5% of whatever that cost is. But it is high on the cemeteries, and that's why I asked for an estimate.
What about liability? Say they get in there and they destroy a monument or they cave in a roadside or something.
They have issued, we do have a certificate of liability naming the county as an additional insured. And they are responsible for that. And we've also sent this possibility to the State Historic Preservation Office to make sure that they are allowed to do this work. My concern is so I think the expectation from the public is that we remove these trees.
Yeah.
I would expect that would be the expectation. I'm not sure who else would do it. And we do perform maintenance on cemeteries, although, like I said, our policy is very clear. My concern was that 2 or 3 years down the road, FEMA would come along and say, okay, you can pay all that money back because your own policy says you don't perform maintenance other than mowing, which is why I'm coming to the board asking for permission. But if we task our Public Works Department with doing this, I'm afraid, I'm not sure that we could be effective, and I'm not sure that we wouldn't make mistakes or cause damage. And this way, we are asking our contractors who have experience in working in cemeteries, they have cranes, they have the equipment that I feel like is needed to get this work done, then it's in their hands.
Come and help us with this. She's talking about down the road, if they come back asking for, give us some advice.
Okay. Want to avoid the application?
Well, I'm gonna answer it a different way from your question. Since you asked me a question, so try to only speak when spoken to unless I think that something's wrong going on. Before you agree to do this, Wanda, why don't we wait and see how good they've done the debris removal up to a certain point?
They have done an excellent job as far as the debris removal. I'll give you an example, of course, Capitol Hall. They did a great job, and you have to remember, we have the the debris management company, and we also have the monitoring company. So the monitoring contractor basically checks behind and makes sure that everything that they do everything they say they do, the tickets match up, and that at the end of the day, everything is FEMA reimbursable.
And then the other question that I had, and I'm not a debris removal expert by any stretch of the imagination, but we do ride around on our way to work and the way home, and I've seen some stuff that, that they didn't get up, okay, for lack of a better term. And of course, that happens all the time, I'm sure. Can't get every stick or stone But one thing you need to be aware of, though, is the ripping and the snorting about not funding FEMA. And I'm talking-
and snorting about that. Shut down.
On the news, it was talked about not funding FEMA till they passed that and got everything funded, I think. Yesterday.
Well, that's just one thing that you just gotta be aware of because of that. But in answer to your question about, them coming back for their money, as long as our staff has dotted their i's and crossed our t's, I think we would have a good argument that, no, we don't owe any of this money back because we did what we were required to do in the hurricane, which, was labeled a disaster of epic proportions for our area. Plus, there's an old saying too, can't get blood out of a turnip. I mean, even a big turnip. Even a big turnip or a small rock, Michael, yeah. And so, and then the last thing I would say, and I'm gonna stop unless you ask me another question, is the last times that we've been involved with FEMA with regard, I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about government. I think we've been refunded every time, haven't we?
So the difference between, and this is my understanding, the difference between us self-performing this work, so really you have three options. One, which is to not remove the debris at all. The other is to, because our policy states that we do routine mowing unless the board authorizes additional maintenance. The second would be to hire contractors to do this work. And unless, which we already have a contract with debris removal contractor to do this. But even if we did not task them to do this work and we put it aside or we tried to remove the trees ourselves, I don't believe it is eligible for reimbursement unless we have the monitoring. John, that's correct, right? So you have to have the monitoring in order to get reimbursement for the debris removal.
You would basically put in a mission for this.
No, we would have to do it ourselves and it would not be eligible for reimbursement is what I'm trying to say.
So we don't need to do anything that we're not gonna get reimbursed with in terms of this debris removal.
Well, that's right.
So it sounds, I'm willing to take the risk that FEMA's gonna fund it and that we're gonna get refunded. So with that being said, I would make a motion motion for approval.
I'm second that one.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Thank you. And again, honestly, my biggest concern was because I knew it would be a high cost because of the specialized equipment. But I just didn't see an option. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go back to number 10, all we got left is.
Well, we had the, obviously, on that one, FEMA doesn't refund us, Mr. Bishop, he said he'll pay it.
I'm ready on number 10.
All right, go ahead.
I've read the agreement, it's the same agreement that we've done every year, it's 12/5, which you pay the regional planning council. And they wanted to put in my pet peeves with regard to venue, being Taylor County, exclusively Taylor County.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. So motion to approve, get a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're going to 22A, you have a separate sheet here. The board to further discuss legislative appropriation request for emergency operations center.
So Mr. John Lauk is here to discuss this with you, but at the last meeting, we had discussed a possible expansion to the Emergency Operations Center. But after further discussion with staff, it appears that that is not the best option because of lack of space on that property.
Right, and that's for, I guess, a couple of different reasons. As we learned a lot of lessons during this last hurricane, one of the lessons that was reared its ugly head again was that the emergency operations center that we have is simply not big enough, and it has not been big enough for several years and different disasters. I know it's late, and I really don't want to go into a lot of detail unless y'all want me to, and I will for certain. However, in the discussions about possible funding that was coming up, and different issues that we had dealt with during the storm and that we will continue to deal with in the future, it was recommended to me that we really look at building a public safety complex, not just an emergency operations center. And the reason for that is number one, is that the emergency operations center is strictly not big enough to house all the emergency support functions that have to come together and manage a disaster. Managing a disaster now is way different than what it used to be. Things are very much more structured. You have a lot more of the emergency support staff that come into the emergency operations center and manage it. Whereas we have 14 chairs at that conference room table in the EOC, at any time you have 60 emergency support function personnel. And if any of y'all came into the EOC during the hurricane or even afterwards, you would have quickly seen. And even without me saying a word to them, every dignitary that came into that EOC, state and federal, the first things out of their mouth was, you need a bigger EOC. And so when I was discussing all that with FDEM Director, Mr. Guthrie, he pointed out to me that several counties are looking to build these public safety complexes. And what our plan is, initial plan, this is very, we're just now getting into this, but initially, our public safety complex will house the new EOC, part Sheriff's Office, and part the new Fire Station 1. Fire Station 1, as you now know, is in a hangar that was built in the 50s. Our uniform patrol for our deputies, it was damaged during the storm. It's in one of those small school portables. That's where our deputies, other than our leadership that's in the courthouse, the small portable is where our lieutenants and road patrol and everything try to do their work. Well, we found out that that was definitely not a good place for them to be, even afterwards, because it was unusable. So I was advised that funding is coming. After you have an event like this, you're going to have HMGP funds coming, and you have, since the eye is now on Taylor County because we were ground zero for the storm, they're looking to help us with whatever we need. And especially since everybody that was, I guess I hate to say it this way, everybody that was somebody that came in there and seen that, and they made the recommendations to do it. Well, that's what I'm here for now, is we know the funding is coming. And upon the recommendation from the director himself, that's what I'm here to do, is the location. We have a couple different locations, county-owned properties. If I need to talk about that, I can. We have 28 acres behind the hospital that the county owns, and then obviously also we have many acres at the airport that we could use. A lot of acres at the airport, and the reason we kind of, and myself and Chief Castle, whenever we talked about it, at the airport is kind of where we would lean to it. Because obviously there, as we now know, that a lot of our staging, of supplies and everything happens in the airport. So having your emergency operations center there close by, would just kind of be the no-brainer, I should say.
And you said funding is coming, from where?
Legislative,
So this would still be part of what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey. Go for it.
I think the airport would be the perfect place for it.
Yes.
Now, Ward, would we have to revise our master plan and to have a complex like that at the airport? What area did you have in mind?
Oh, I'm guessing it's gonna be outside the fence.
There's
Maybe in front of where the.
so I know one of the places that we were talking about, like I say, this is not set in stone by any means, but, the corner of the property that's over closer to, at the corner of, by Puckett Road, there's a lot of acreage over there. I know that was one of the things that was, the only concern is making sure that we don't violate the, right, that's the airspace, and then being directly in front of a runway itself.
That's only it came to mind when you said that. There's a lot of land along that road that's not.
Right.
RSA.
And you're looking,
So it wouldn't impact any of the grant funding or any of that structure that's already in place?
Well, they say the master plan, I'll double check with y'all and make
Yeah,
sure.
we probably
But
need to check
I
on
think
that.
outside the fence, they're not really all that concerned about it.
yeah,
I'll find out.
Don't forget approval from FAA, anything that you do with the airport.
Yeah.
We have gotten our grass mowed a couple of times on that, haven't we, Luanda?
Yes, sir.
I wish they get the grass mowed out here.
Your proposal is to have a public safety complex, including the new EOC at a permanent site. Correct.
And would the amount of the request be?
I've reached out to Wakulla County, well, just a little background, Wakulla, Gaston, and Columbia County, they're all in the same place that we're in right now, but they have plans that they have approved, and now they're waiting to get their funding. Wakulla County, their complex, whenever it was 7 million. Columbia County, was 10 million at their last, quote, but now they're saying obviously a few years later, it's gonna be a little bit more than that. So it's gonna be around $10 million, and we're looking at just a little bit less than a 20,000 square foot, building. And that's not counting, we're also looking into, having a much larger staging area outside, a much larger parking lot. I'm sure if you came to the EOC during the storm, it was a hot mess out there. I mean, there wasn't room for anything.
How long would it take us to, confer with FAA and get some kind of okay or whatever?
Not long, especially if it's a portion that's not, like Ward said, inside the fence, something that wouldn't be used for aviation.
So in plenty of time before we have to turn these in.
Yes.
If we're gonna do this, I would recommend that, you ask for more than what you think you're gonna need.
Yes, ma'am.
You always discuss with inflation and everything else, but, if it's not a problem with FAA, I'm with you on this.
Thank you. We're killing, honestly, 3 birds, with 1 stone. We have 3 different departments that would be very good served with complex.
So, I guess, would you need a motion to add that public safety complex to the appropriation?
Well, hold on just a minute. No, one of the problems, we had a lot of problems, but one of the problems that we had was we did not have a facility in the beginning to put people that needed a shelter. So
I know where you're going with it, and that's part of it.
So we would have a facility that would house people that needed shelter.
Well, and that was a part of the overall plan, was just like exactly what you're saying, Commissioner Field. Having the Forest Capitol Hall and some issues that we dealt with getting that going, that is part of this plan. I don't know, like I say, we're really at the beginning stages of this, but that was one of the thoughts. A checklist, we're gonna make a checklist to go down before we pull the trigger on this, and to make sure, there's several of us are gonna be, in this decision-making process. We're gonna make a checklist. Do we need this? We're gonna need this, this, and this. We found that we needed this during a hurricane, exactly those kind of points. So yes, I mean, all that's considered.
And we may want to consider adding a portion of the building for our ambulance service. And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that would be part of the public safety
That sounds like
facility.
a really good idea to me, so, then I would like to make a motion then that we add this to our list, and I guess it would be number 4. We've already identified 1, 2, and 3.
So we had,
And we have 3 fire stations, 1, 2, and
yes,
3.
yes.
That we add this as, I guess, number 4, and that we add pending, an okay from FAA. And, I would identify more than $10 million, so help me with that.
Yes, ma'am.
What?
Oh, I guess for, I mean, we can go ahead and say 20. To make sure that we have, like you said, if we're looking for another.
Or maybe
facility.
somewhere between,
Excuse me.
how it all
Yes.
plays out.
So the motion would be that we go ahead, with this as number 4 for $20 million to erect this facility that would include all the things that was mentioned, pending FAA approval.
That's, what's the name, safety complex?
Well, tentatively, it will be the Taylor County Public Safety Complex.
We have a motion. We have a second? Second. All in favor?
Thank y'all.
23, the county administrator. Information item.
Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Just wanted y'all to just remind you, the legislative delegation meeting is October 23rd at 10:30.
You are the last party in the conference.
So these appropriations requests will have to be approved on the 17th. So really fast turnaround on writing these requests. Also, November 10th, which is Friday, we were planning to hold our Veterans Day luncheon. I know Veterans Day is on the 11th, but it is, if you look at the calendar, it's celebrated on the 10th.
Got plenty of money for that?
We should. I do need to reach out to, I have to reach out to GP to see if they'll fund it this year. But if not, we'll let y'all know that we need donations.
What time was that on the 23rd?
Legislative day.
10:30 meeting, yes, October 23rd. And then November 10th, we would like to hold our Veterans Day luncheon. And that typically starts at noon. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Good. Yeah, 24, comments and concerns from the public for non-agenda items.
Jim Serber from Steam Hatching, got a little stiff over there. Hey, something that really has been under the radar with all the other important things that Taylor County's got going. The governor, our great governor, stood down there in Steam Hatching and made mention to the world about a fishery disaster relief. Just like we have disaster relief for the overall hurricane, he's looking for a fishery disaster relief. And we very seldom ever talk about fishery here. McCullough, Franklin, and I have a fish deal buyer, but you know that every one of my, close to $1 million worth of fish that I buy a year, Taylor County gets no credit for it at all. You wouldn't know that we bought the first bit of seafood. Okay, because I unload in Dixie County because they've got facilities. And we've got opportunity right now. There's a few places. I think that we ought to be looking at a grant really hard I mean, the governor stood here and talked about fishery disaster relief, and Dixie County is gonna get, if they get money, it's gonna be far more than Taylor County gets. We got little blue crabs that are reported, but the reef fish, which is where the big money is, and stone crabs, all go to Dixie County. So I'm just wondering, maybe that somebody, want to get a motion going to direct staff to look at a grant that promotes wild-caught seafood and the aquaculture seafood also. Listen, it's big, we just don't have the bottom out here for clams and oysters, right? And so that's a Dixie County thing, but would like to see something move in that direction. And a little bit more with advertising. The other counties go to Wakulla, you know, they promote their seafood, they're proud of it. You go to restaurants, there's brochures laying there, you go to Angelo's to see it. So, thank you guys.
Thank you. You know that you had a room full of people in here tonight from Steenhatchee that don't want to take any grant money.
Yeah, well, if I could say one thing additional.
It's okay in some cases and some it's not, right?
Well, you opened it. I personally have people come to me and tell me what they got from FEMA. Some of the stuff is pretty hard to take. You know, when we've had people that really had disasters, but you know what? They had a chance to buy flood insurance. And they want to take that $5,000 or $6,000 and not buy flood insurance. And then when FEMA comes in, they looked at a $50,000 to fix their place. I know more than one. They gave them a check for over half of it right then and there while I pay flood insurance. It seems to be counterproductive. I need to be one of them people that doesn't buy the insurance, get it anyways. So, but as far as the bridge, yes, it's just one of those things. It has to do with, for me, it's a moral issue, not having it to spend. I want to see somebody else that maybe needs that bridge more. I'm sure they'll find a good home for it. It's just in this particular case, and it hurts. I mean, have that kind of money and to turn it down. But I did go down there after the hurricane. My wife, Patty, made the comment. She said, we come down that one lane road, and she said, yeah, I know. And we just kind of looked at each other. She made a comment that I just don't see how this works. But we don't live there, but those folks do.
It's just amazing that some things is okay and some's not.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would ask, look into the potential for, the fisheries grant funding option as far as the location that, Mr. Zerbrick is speaking about. I was there when the governor, made mention of that disaster request, and that's a federal request that he put forth to the president. And I would say that just recently, our agriculture commissioner came forth with some projections as to the loss, not just in the timber industry, but also in respect to the fisheries.
So what is it that we're looking to?
I would like to see if there is potential funding that would be available to help our fishermen that have been displaced in respect to the disaster, but even further than that for the future. I would like to see if it's something to do with waterfronts or things of that nature that would bring forth potential funding so that we do have a site in Taylor County to offload commercial fishermen, for fishermen and fish, so that we are getting credit for that when folks are gathering data and the like, that it would reflect accurately. And so.
Is there a site in mind?
You know, if it's something that I'm not familiar with something that the county currently owns, but if it's something after this storm that may become available that previously would not have been.
There is a site that, Mitch Mitchell site where they just tore down that marina. It was a man-made canal, so it has that kind of advantage, because you know, you put it in man-made, it's different than a navigable body of water. It needs some work. They tore the buildings down, so now it's nothing but a vacant lot and water access.
So I'll reach out to Victor and see if he can help me research any type of disaster relief. And we'll go from there. If that's
Anyone else from the public?
When you say wild caught seafood, is that the mullet?
Yeah, mullet, all of it.
Anyone else from the public? All right. Move on, more information on, Mr. Figel.
A couple of things on debris. When are the city streets gonna be picked up?
We're working on that.
My neighborhood has not been touched.
So, and I can just say this secondhand, because that doesn't, come with, it's the city streets. I know that the city was maybe several weeks behind, because we had to, if you'll recall, we put a memorandum on the agenda and got that executed. That went back to FDOT from what I hear, and they have started debris pickup within the city. But that's all I know.
Okay. So obviously, the October 1st deadline has passed, and they haven't made the first round, they haven't completed the first round.
No. So the October 1st deadline, the way it probably should have been communicated was that was a deadline for the first pass only. So that was simply a request from FDOT for people to go ahead and get their debris out for the first pass.
Well, that's the first pass then, isn't that the first go around of everybody?
It is, but
But they haven't done that.
they have not completed the first pass, no.
Okay, so where do we stand now then?
So-
If they put out something that says, okay, we need it out for the first pass by October the 1st, and they didn't meet that self-imposed deadline.
It's fine. So I understand what you're saying. So I would say that the last I heard, and this is strictly the county roads, that as of last week, the contractor had only completed maybe 25% of that first pass. There is a ton of debris.
Okay.
There is so much debris.
Yeah.
So I haven't been provided with the number of passes or the deadline for the entire project. I would anticipate at least 2 full passes, and I don't know if there'll be a third. And I don't think they can set a deadline until they see how long it takes to pick up the first pass, which is going to take the longest, I would anticipate. And then I would anticipate another deadline, being given for the second pass. And then if there's a third pass, I think it would just be the little bit that's left. But I can't, that's just me. That's just what I perceive.
Well, I know it's premature right now to talk about after they say they're done, and then, stuff is put back out there, but we can cross that road later on, That's a little premature right now, but on Green Farm Road, I'll give you the address and all that later, I'll send it to you in a picture, but I had a constituent that reached out to me, and he showed me a picture where they came along and they picked up the big pile, but they left a good bit there, and they told him that they couldn't pick it up because it was too close to the fence. Well, his fence, you've got the fence and then the right of way, and when you've got as much stuff as being put out, it's either go in the road or go up closer to the fence. So then, after he talked to them, they said they couldn't pick it up and they left it, they said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll be back and get it. Now, do you know anything about how, them saying stuff like that? Are they really gonna come back and get it? Or is
I
that
would think so,
just
because
because it's too close to the fence, they're not gonna get it?
Well, they're prohibited from entering private property, so that I would guess that that's what that discussion was in reference to. But if you send me the address, I'll check with them and see.
I will.
I saw them do it on the Bucket Road. They left just a little bit along the fence on the airport, by the airport there on the west side. They sent a small machine around there with a rake, and they did get that up.
And it was not on the right of way, but kind of backed up some off of the right of way?
Actually, the trees that was dumped actually mashed the fence down part of the way. But they did come back and get all of it. It was left there for about a week, and then they came back and got the small stuff. But they had, when I saw a skid steer with a little gravel on it, and they was getting it with that, they couldn't get it with a big boom, but they too close to the fence, I would doubt, I thought.
I sent you some stuff. Remember, I got the call from State Hatching, and they were saying that people were clearing their lot. It had nothing to do with the storm, and did he go down and take a look at that, and what happened with that?
I have not received the follow-up, but I'll double check with them. I did ask them to go check on that.
Yeah.
So I'll follow up with that.
I was thinking tonight, the old saying goes, we got plenty of money till it runs out. I know at home, they used to say at the dinner table, we got plenty till it runs out. Well, that's where we are here. We got plenty of money at the county till it runs out. And, we can't pretend that nothing has happened. Something has happened, and I think we're gonna see some really, really hard times coming up in the future in terms of our economic status. So we can't pretend nothing's happened. I think it's gonna be rough, and we've got to be very vigilant. We've got to be very, very careful of how we spend money from here on. I don't think that we should be spending and funding anything that's not absolutely necessary. I hate to think about what may happen in the year or two to come. I don't think it's going to be a very pretty scene. But if we keep spending, when we run out, we're out. And we'll face the consequences then, but that's not the way I like to operate at home or in my job. I think we've got to be very careful.
Yeah. One, I was talking to someone the other day, and it was talking about GP shutting down and how it affected so many folks. And somebody threw the figure out at 1,500. I know what we've done. Live Oak had that big sawmill come over there, they shut it down. Clawson. Well, when Clawson left them, they left them in bad shape. So what they applied for was a loan, infrastructure, and they had a catalyst site, and they're now funding that catalyst site over there in Live Oak, Swanee County. That's about $20 million. I think about $20 million. And another one, I'm also with the Department of Equal Opportunity or Department of Economics. And the Baker County got a hydroponic growing plant coming over there, about 20 million square feet. I believe somebody told me, but it might not be but 1 million. But when you go to talking, it gets large all the time. Every time on one top. So, and they're going to supply the vegetable for 7 counties around Bradford County, Baker County. So, there's something we're going to have to look at it. GP or somebody don't take that mill over and run it.
So I've been talking to Melody about the possibility of applying for, it's called RIF funding, it's Rural Infrastructure Funding.
Yeah.
We actually have a call scheduled this week where we can discuss, any potential possibilities for us. Because this would be a good time to try to apply for that type of funding. And we do have Duke Energy, their economic development group has, we've already met with them, and NFEDP came in and met, and then they went over to the TCDA and met with Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
And I do think there are some opportunities for Taylor County, but what we have to think about is, those projects are usually a couple of years out. So if a project was identified today, unless it was someone who could, a turnkey operation, for the GP site, then we have to determine how to, get through that time period before we have that type of economic development and an increase in revenue.
That's all.
No, I just wanted to take time to thank the county staff for all these efforts, continuing to reach out and meet the needs of all our residents, so I appreciate all those efforts. And please, thank all folks on that. Mr. Moody?
I'm fine.
All right. What do I hear? You have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to recognize Bill Brines from the city council. Thank you for being here tonight.
We don't have any problem.
Smooth stuff.
Can you lower
All right. We have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And a second? All in favor?